Hello and welcome to Inside Edition, where we discuss national, regional and international issues in depth. A regional conference on boosting judicial cooperation in the Middle East and North Africa to combat money laundering and funding terrorism was recently held in the Kingdom of Bahrain. This vital event was organized by the Public Prosecution under the patronage of Attorney General Dr. Ali bin Fadl Buainin in cooperation with the Syracuse International Institute for Criminal Justice and Human Rights and the EU's Anti-Money Laundering and Financing of Terrorism Office. To know more about the conference's agenda and outcomes, we are pleased to be joined here in the studio by Public Prosecutor Mr. Ahmad AlFadhel right after this.
So the most important things of this conference is the fact that we have 17 countries in the room, that these countries will work together for 3 days now, and that's the first event we do in the region after the COVID crisis. So that's for us very, very important. And the most important thing is also that this conference is actually sponsored by the European Commission, and we are very happy to be there.
This conference is critically important because in the fight against money laundering, for many, many years, the judicial systems have been left aside, although they are one of the most important part of the chain in the fight against illicit profit. So today what we are trying to do is to have judges and prosecutors meet together, talk together, identify the legal problems that they are facing in confiscating assets, in sentencing criminals, and we will note, I'm sure, that all of them are facing the same difficulties, because it is one thing to determine that a person is in possession of criminal assets. Another thing is to do it in the respect of fundamental rights, in the respect of the rule of law, in the respect of due process. So judges and prosecutors have to combine first the efficiency of the fight against money laundering, but also the protection of fundamental rights to whom everyone is subject.
So for us it's very important that every country works the same way. We try to have cooperation with each and every country, not only in that region, we work globally, so all over the world, but for Bahrain, we believe that the Kingdom of Bahrain has made a lot of effort to comply with all these AML CFT rules, and we want to support the Kingdom. So that's a bit the idea. We work with them, they work with us, and this is a cooperation. It's really a cooperation and collaboration with the Kingdom of Bahrain that we have.
Well, different geography, but certainly a common culture around the Mediterranean. And the Syracuse Institute, for 50 years, the Syracuse Institute will celebrate its 50th anniversary this year, has always been at the side of the countries of the region in their efforts to pursue crime, but also to protect fundamental rights. So I'm not surprised that they are all here today, because we know each other, we have been working together. At the same time, I feel absolutely amazed that all of them have responded yes. All of delegations, judges, prosecutors, financial intelligence unit are coming here to present cases and to say this is what we have found, this is what we have had as legal problem, and this is how we solved it. So the experience of each of the country will serve to build up the experience of the other countries. This is what we want to do.
Welcome back. Joining me here in the studio is Public Prosecutor Mr. Ahmad AlFadhel. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
We had a very interesting conference that we went to. The interesting about it is the collaboration between so many entities from Bahrain, the public prosecution. From the international arena, we had the EU Legislative and Judicial Council, and as well the Syracuse Institute, which is one of the leading justice institutes in the world, actually. So hosting a conference on boosting judicial cooperation in the Middle East and North Africa, specifically to combat money laundering and funding terrorism, comes to achieve various goals, keeping in mind that the fighting money laundering concept in Bahrain is something that Bahrain has a lot of experience with and has built a very big standard for. So what can you tell us about the objectives and the importance of this event specifically, please?
First of all, holding such a conference here in Bahrain comes to show the great lengths which Bahrain has taken in the field of combating money laundering and the countering of terrorism financing. This conference mainly focuses on increasing the international cooperation between countries, specifically in the MENA region, and finding ways to strengthen that cooperation, also to remove any obstacles that may arise during that international cooperation. It first of all touched upon all these matters in its first session. It's currently going to the second day, and hopefully by the end we'll be able to provide certain recommendations from that conference in order to implement them within the international or within the national law.
Yeah. During the conference, we saw a lot of the decision makers within our local institutions as well as the regional ones. The CBB Bank was there, the Minister of Justice was there, and the Public Prosecutor, the head of the Public Prosecution was there as well. Having these decision makers there, what does that really mean for a conference of this magnitude?
I mean, the answer is in the question itself. It does come to show the importance of such a conference and the high level which it holds. Having the participants from different fields, from either the Syracuse Institute and the Global Facility, and many renowned international experts, does present the opportunity to discuss at the highest level the problems that may arise in the field of money laundering and the combating of terrorism financing. And getting the expertise from such a high level field and from such a high level source improves in the end the quality of all the recommendations that may arise in the end. Yeah,
it also gives it that kind of importance for a conference like that, especially that not only were high-ranking officials from Bahrain there, but 17 different countries were represented there as well. During this conference, what were the main topics discussed?
The conference touched upon many important subjects, mainly international cooperation and specifically international judicial cooperation. Because when it comes to the MENA region, there is clear international cooperation, but some obstacles may arise in any situation, and holding such a conference with all these parties gives an easy access between all these countries to discuss such problems, such obstacles, and gives the field to remedy all of those problems.
Yes. When it comes to the exchange of expertise and the exchange of basically experiences, is it important in this kind of field, and specifically for the two topics of money laundering and financing terrorism?
The thing is, the exchange of information between countries is vital when it comes to these two crimes, because often we find that these crimes are transnational in nature. So it becomes very important that all the countries do share the information between each other in order to preserve evidence, in order to conduct investigations in a very efficient manner.
We've mentioned, of course, that Bahrain has experience in fighting money laundering. But specifically, why is it important, or why was it significant that this conference took place on the grounds of our island?
This comes to show that Bahrain has been at the forefront of combating money laundering and the terrorism financing, and it has taken great strides in its legislative statute in amending certain laws, legislating certain laws to effectively combat such serious crimes, which have such a very serious or a severe outcome or result into the financial system of any country. And luckily, and I'm proud to say that Bahrain has been ranked first in the Basel Index for combating money laundering, and being one of the least dangerous countries in the Arab world when it comes to dangers resulting from money laundering and the financing of terrorism.
Amazing. Bahrain's judicial field has a very long history in so many different fields, not just the financial crimes field, but also other ones. What can you tell us about these standards and the building and the ongoing building of the judicial field and standards in Bahrain?
The legislative process is a process in itself. It takes time, and luckily we are in a point right now where it has crossed a very long way from where it started, and at this point Bahrain has been able to arm itself with a good set of laws that enable it to effectively combat such crimes.
Bahrain's cooperation with international organizations that are a country or basically government headed is also well known, as well as international institutions that set standards, such as the Syracuse Institute. So what can you tell us about the organization of the conference in cooperation with the Syracuse International Institute for Criminal Justice and Human Rights and the EU's anti-money laundering and financing of terrorism?
First of all, it's worth noting that His Excellency, the Attorney General, has been keen on developing and improving the skill sets within the public prosecution. And as such, and I can say this from personal point of view, I have worked closely in the organization of this conference, and working with such high-level entities like the Syracuse Institute and the Global Facility has been a very rewarding experience. To witness such high level of professionalism from both of those entities, and I can honestly say we are proud to have worked with them, and we're proud to have held such a conference of such high level within the Kingdom of Bahrain.
That's amazing. How do you value the vast participation that we've seen? I mean, the conference was full of experts in the field, not just the ones that flew in, but also the ones locally. How do you value that kind of participation in such a conference?
Again, it does come to show how important this conference is, how other entities or how other persons, experts, whether they be, or states, which have taken part in it, recognizing the level of the conference itself. And it comes to show that all of these participants want to have the opportunity to sit with their fellow states, discuss any obstacles that may arise in the international cooperation field, international judiciary, or even the mutual legal assistance requests, which help us solve cases through the cooperation between different states. And that is a great opportunity to have been in this conference, which gave the opportunity for all those states to discuss all those obstacles and give suggestions to how we can improve this model.
Definitely. Do you see any kind of alteration or heightening of standards or a different perspective for the future generations of lawyers that are now graduating and coming into the field that want to specialize into money laundering, especially in light of the extreme change, not just in Bahrain, but all over the world, into technology and digital kind of, whether it's finance, currency, or cryptocurrency and anything like that? Do you see there is a shift within the legislative field itself in that?
In general, we encourage everybody, especially lawyers, especially newly graduated lawyers, to arm themselves with enough knowledge to combat or to take part in the legal process. Standing before the judiciary, presenting your cases in such a knowledgeable manner is extremely important. We are lucky to have such a good legislative source here in Bahrain, especially when it comes to money laundering and the countering of terrorism financing. And we do hope that the process itself of all this legislation does continue. It does not matter, or does not mind that we do improve the set of laws. Modernization is always good, and it's a continuous process.
Yeah. Now, the conference, we've seen cooperation between international entities and Bahrain. How important is cooperation within the team of any legislative team in Bahrain fighting such crimes? I know that for a fact the legislative teams there are many components towards whether there are the investigators, the lawyers themselves, or even the people that get to collect the data in order for you to have these kind of very positive outcomes. How important is cooperation within entities in Bahrain?
I must say that without such cooperation, it will become impossible to reach a desired outcome. We cannot prosecute perpetrators of crimes without having the full support and full cooperation from all the law enforcement agencies concerned with this. As we say here, one hand does not clap, and this is exactly the point. Luckily here in Bahrain, we have been able to find a good cooperation model for all the law enforcement agencies concerned with this, and we hope for an improvement also because it's a very important topic.
Definitely. What are the main recommendations and the outcomes after this conference? What are the suggested procedures that will be implemented?
It did touch upon many important subjects, such as the improvement of all the international cooperation models between states, finding direct contact mechanisms to have direct contact with other states in regard to money laundering and the countering of terrorism financing, as well as many other subjects. But in the end of the conference, we are sure that recommendations will be provided that will show all the obstacles facing current international judicial cooperation and ways to solve it.
Yes, yes. Well, when we talk about the judicial process in Bahrain, as mentioned, the judicial process is one component of many when it comes to solving crimes or fighting crimes such as money laundering and terrorist funding, but also keeping people safe. The judicial process or the judicial field is a part of that. So when we have new people that come to Bahrain and start their businesses or their investments in Bahrain, or even work with our local banks, there are certain standards that have been set already from the judicial field. What can you tell us about the importance of adhering to these and the strenuous process that has been made so simple in Bahrain, and it's easy to actually access all of this information but still feel safe?
We are proud to say that Bahrain has been considered a safe haven for such individuals who come here to seek livelihood or other matters. Our legal system here is very strong, and it does cover all the matters which need to be covered, making it a very either economically safe or even for certain individuals who are not concerned or not taking part in the economic process to feel safety being here in Bahrain. And I must say that we are very proud of such achievement which Bahrain has reached.
Definitely. From your point of view, how do you see the future of collaborated efforts to combat money laundering and funding terrorism, not just on our regional level, but really on a global level?
This is one of the main points that the conference held, actually. Once you sit down on a table discussing with the people that you do contact regarding this international cooperation, and you discuss the obstacles that face such a cooperation, then it becomes much easier to provide solutions for any obstacles that may arise. The international cooperation is not perfect, but I do believe that through communication and hard work, we will be able, whether through bilateral treaties or whether by any other means, we will be able to reach a very safe international system for combating such a serious crime.
Yes. When it comes to money laundering and funding terrorism, there are very strict standards, as we've said, when it comes to keeping people safe from these crimes. But what people don't really talk about are the very hard kind of punishments that come to people that go through that. That's why there is a very long, let's say, facility that studies the cases on a very precise way. So what can you tell us about what the conference partake in the different experiences and actually arraigning people that have gone through, or companies or institutions that gone through the money laundering schemes or anything like that?
Let's take it from a Kingdom of Bahrain perspective. Yeah. Given the seriousness of such crimes, His Excellency the Attorney General has established a specialized prosecution to handle money laundering crimes, and another that handles the terrorism financing. And establishing such a prosecution just for that purpose does show the seriousness of this crime and its severe effects on the financial system in general and the legal system as well. Bringing that to the conference, it does touch upon all the matters that may arise during the investigation of such crimes, and does provide solutions to all those problems. We do eagerly await the recommendations to see how we can implement them.
Definitely. Before we end today's show, I want to get your point of view on the future of collaborations within the judicial field. How important is it? And are there any future prospects for such cooperations as this one?
The future is looking bright, considering the amount of participants that attended this conference. Yes. And as the international cooperation is a main topic in the topics of the conference, then we do hope that we establish at the end a certain mechanism that allows for more effective, more efficient international judicial cooperation to combat these two serious crimes.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being with us today, Public Prosecutor Mr. Ahmad AlFadhel, and for talking to us and elaborating on this.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
And we'd like to thank you, dear viewers, for watching us, and we'll see you next week in another episode of Inside Edition.